Hi and welcome back to the next video. This time we are looking at a simple Angular and Angular Material project that just aims to make a simple login component and a simple register component. So just for an example to see how it works. We are using some stuff like proxy.conf to redirect requests against your backend, for example, if you're running on localhost. To use Angular Material, for example, Angular Material cards, to use reactive forms, so have like login form, a register form that also validates some stuff. So for example, if there are properties set, if the user has input, if he has touched the form, if the passwords on the register page where he has to enter 2 passwords, if they are matching, and so on, and display, if not, some hints. We are adding some authentication guard to check if there's a valid JWT in the local storage, and make some lazy loaded modules, so one public and one protected. And yeah, this is basically all. As you can see it here in the background, we have on the left the look of the login page or of the login form, and the right the register form, where you can also see at the bottom what is being displayed if the passwords are not matching, for example. So there are always hints displayed. Let's come to the table of contents here. So first we have a look now at the project outcome. So a high-level view of the project. Then we look at the running project and talk about what this project is aiming for. So just to show how to implement stuff, and the requests against the backend are like mocked, so they are fake. So you can implement them, for example, later. So this here is just an Angular project. Then in the next step, we are coming to number 2, to the front end, where we look at all the code that was being wrote here and just go through it. And at the end, there's, I think it's like actually 20 seconds where we look at the next steps of what we want to do with this project. So let's have a short overview of the outcome of this video here. So here you can see our Git repository, so the whole Angular application. And here you can see I hit ng-serve to build or to bundle our whole application, and then it spin up the development server on localhost 4200. So I could go now to the browser and go to localhost 4200, and here I can see I have my login. And this has also all the validations, so it tests if this is an email. I need a password to be required. I can also go to a register page. This has like the same validation, so we need this stuff. And for example, here we have a password and a password confirmation, and these have to match. So if they are not matching, then you're not able to register. If they are matching, then this works. And so here you also have to fill in a value for everything and a valid email, and then you can register. Then you get a message that you registered your user successfully. And just remember, like all the response and requests to the backend are mocked, so these are not real requests against the backend. So because the main object here is to show how to use Angular Material for a simple register and for a simple login page, show maybe here some breadcrumbs, so just some infos, what's happening, and some basic stuff. For example, here when we log in, then we are coming to the protected dashboard route, and this is protected by a guard, and this always checks if there's a valid JWT, and this JWT gets set when we log in. Then we set this JWT in the local storage, and this is actually also a dummy, but you can see it is valid. And we have here some payload data, so this is not matching this rest because it's also a mock. So here you can now also go back, and since you are still having a JWT, you're also able to go to the protected route here. But as soon as you log out and remove the token here from the local storage, then you're not able, you can see it here, if I try to access the protected route here, then the guard don't let you because you're not having a valid JWT. So this is in short the outcome of this video and what we want to look at. So now let's go deeper into our Angular code and what we did here. So we just created here like a normal Angular application, and here in the README you can see when I open this what we have done. In a second. So here we are going to add the link to the video, and always read the docs here carefully. So all requests to our backend are mocked, but we have always in the code some commented example that you can use and modify for your specific needs. So just like a small example, if we are going here to a service, then the actual call to the backend is mocked here, but this here would be like a real call that you could make to your backend if you have one. So you can just then change this. And how to run, you need to run or need to hit npm install and then nreserve, and then you can go to localhost. Here are some hints. So we have a proxy. With the proxy file, we can proxy or rewrite our API calls against our backend. So we have at the moment a proxy call set up here with some config details. And so the request won't fail because we don't have a backend running, but you can you can build a backend. And this is very simple. So here we have a proxy.conf.json, and this listens for the /API, all requests that are going against /API, and then you can send them to a new target, for example, localhost 8080. You can say secure, change origin, lock level, and so on. And for this to work, you always have to add this to your package.json, for example, here to the nreserve. We have added a proxy conf file here, so when we hit nreserve, then this gets also spin up. Then we have like a guard that checks our protected route, and this just checks if there's a JWT in the local storage and that it's not expired. And if it's okay, then the user can access the route, and if not, the user gets redirected. So here we have our authentication guard. This just gets from our JWT service if the token is expired. If it is true, and this would also be true if there is no token, then it would navigate back to log in, and else it would let the user pass to the route. So this is now just like a basic overview of our README, and then we go also a little more detailed through the code. So we have next step for you would be to add like a real backend and replace all the placeholders, and maybe also for us here in this project add a form to reset a password and some other stuff, or send an email and so on. Then I have listened here, or listed here all the commands that I used to generate this project. So the first was to generate with the Angular CLI the Angular startup application. So just ng new and then new application name. Then we added Angular material for some styling to our application. Then we generated our both modules here, the protected and the public module. Actually, I can just zoom in a little bit. So we have here then our protected and public module, and you can see it here. I once named it private, but at the moment I renamed it to protected. So we can just fix this. Saying Angular module protected. So basically, in our public module, all we do have is the public stuff, and in our protected module, you need the JWT token. Then I generated like all the components, the login component, the register component, and the dashboard component. And here always inside either the public module or into the protected module. Then I generated like a service, so with ng generate service here for public, and this was then in our services out service, so I moved it. Then I added an Angular JWT package for handling the JWT, so npm install. Then I added like the authentication guard and implemented the can activate interface, and here just some sample screenshots from this application like that we just saw. So if we now go from a top level perspective here, so we have our app routing module that is there to lazy load the public and the protected module. in the app component, we are just using the router outlet, and this is just used to render the content of the current route inside it. For example, if we are on public login, so in our pub route here, we are at public, then we are in our public module here, and on the route login, then this is being rendered into this router outlet here. In our app components, and we are not doing anything. And so in our router module here in the root, we are lazy loading the public route. This means that this gets just loaded if we hit this route, and all children routes of the public module would be under the here /public, and then the route from the lazy loaded module. And this can be done with just load children and then the path to the module and then the path and then the module. Then another path that we have is the protected, and here you can see that we are lazy loading the protected module, and all childs, the same as here, would be then under /protected and then / and then the route from the lazy loaded module. And here we have implemented the can activate, and this is using our authentication guard. This will check if someone is trying to access the protected route, if there's a JWT, a valid one or not. And if there's not, he will be redirected back to the base route. And here we have a redirect that goes for all paths. So if we have a path that is not matching these two here, then we are coming to this and we redirect them back to public. And in our public module, we are also, if we are not matching anything, we are redirected back here to login. So then we are always going to public login. So then we have our app.module. Here, of course, we import our app routing module here with our routes. We have our Angular material mat snackbar module to display some breadcrumbs or snack bars, whatever you want to call it. And we have here the JWT module. So this is there to help us with JWT stuff. For this, it takes a config, and it needs a config or a token getter. So how to get the token, and this is just to get the token. Since we are saving in local storage, we can just say local storage would get item, and the local storage is like a key value pair. So you can see it here in our local storage when we log in. I don't know if it's running right now. Yeah, it's running, and we have a key here and a value. So then we can access the value always with the key here. And so the key is named this. And this is being set. We can just show it to you when we log in our authentication service. So if we hit login, then here we are just saying local storage.set item. So set the key value pair. The value is then here. The key is then here our key that we imported from the app module, and then the token is the token that we get from the backend, so the value. But let's go back from the top level perspective. So here in the app.module we are using then this, and this would also, if we have logged in and if we are sending requests to the backend, there will always be an interceptor, and this interceptor is there to, how do you say, for every request that we would make against our backend, it would intercept this request, and it would add the actual token from our local storage to the request as authorization, so that the backend always has the authorization or can check if we are valid, or if we are a valid user, and if we are able to access a resource or do some stuff, for example. So then maybe the next thing would be to look here at our authentication guard that is protecting our protected module here. So here we implement the can activate interface. And so this here this is token expired is coming from the JWT service from this package that we installed. And this would result to true if either the token is expired that we have in the local storage, or if we have no token or key value pair in the local storage. And you just have to remember, even if there is like a access token in our local storage, that is with the right key to access it. If we send like then the request with this token against the backend would validate it and would validate it as false, so that the frontend would not get any data. So we are safe here. So if this here, for example, is true, so if the token is expired or we have no token or key value in our local storage, we would go back to our login route and return false. So we would not let the user access the route. And in the else case, we are returning true, so the user can access the route. Then we can first have a look at our public module, which holds like most of the stuff that we are doing here. And what's the main reason that I made like this project here. So the main reason is to display like a simple way to make a login and a register page with Angular material. So let's first look at our login page because it's a little bit simpler. So here we have first our router link to go back to the register page so that we can easily switch here between these pages. Then we have an Angular material card, and for this to be used, we have our public module, or we have imported like all the Angular material imports that we need, so the met card module, the met form field module, input module, and so on for our design. And the other stuff that we imported here is, for example, the public routing module, and here we just define if we are on the route public, and then /login, we use the login component. For register, we use the register component, and if we don't hit a path here, we redirect to login. So since this here is basically loaded under the public route, complete route for login would be public login or here public register. Then here in the login, in our met card, we have our title, and then we have our content. And here we are using Angular reactive-forms, so you have to make sure that in our module you are importing Angular reactive or the reactive-forms module from Angular. And this helps us a lot with setting up like readable forms. So we can simply assign or bind this to a form group, and this is our login form. And when we hit here like the submit button, we are executing the login function here in our component. So in our component, we have our login form, which is a form group, and it has an email and a password property. And these are form controls from Angular, so from the Angular forms package. And we can give it some validators. For example, we can say validators required and validators of email. So these are pre-built or validators that are there from Angular that we can use. So this for here means the form is only valid if email has a value, and the validator of email validates with a regex against if there's, for example, an @ so if it's like an email. So this form then is here being used. So we have then in our form an input, and this is the form control name binds it to the property. So here this is email, and for the password field this is password. So this here goes to this email here, to this property. And here the met input is just from Angular material. We have a placeholder email, and the type is also email. And then here in our met form field, we also have here like a met error, and this is only be displayed. So for example, if this validator here fails, this adds an error object to our email. So we has error, so error required to it. So here we can check this login form, then we get the value, so the email property, and check if it has the error required. And so here, and then we can display email is required, and we combine this with the .touch, so that this only gets displayed with hint for the user if he touched the email property, so the email form field here, and it has an error required in this case. So you can see it here. If I'm not here, nothing is being displayed. But if I touched it and click outside it, then we have email is required, because now it says email was touched, and we have the error, it has to be required. and this only goes away if I have touched it and I have typed a valid email. And then the same goes here, since we have here also the validator email. We can also check for touch and check for the error email and then say email must be valid email. So this is the same approach. And the same we are using here for password. We set the input type to password so that we do not see it, so that we have it here as dots. We have it met input, a placeholder password, and the form control is here password, so it's being binded here to the password. Then the same like the email, we have a met error, and that is only displayed, the password is required if we touched it and it has the required error on it, so that we don't have the value. And then we have our submit button, and this is disabled if our form is invalid. So if our form is containing like here errors, then this form is invalid and we are not able, like you can see it here, if we make the form invalid, then we are not able to click the button. So this is disabled. As just when the form is valid, then we are able to log in. And when we here, this button here, so it's from type submit, so it's inside the form, so it's binded to the NV submit to our login function here. And this is just simply checking, okay, if the form is not valid, so if you manage to click it, whatever, just in case, then it would just return, and otherwise it would go to the authentication service, use the login form.value, so this would then hold the email and the password value, and make the request against our backend if we have one. And then if it was coming successful here back, it's routing us to our protected dashboard route to see the dashboard, so here to this route. So let's check first the authentication service, so the login. So here we have our login. So since we have /API here, if you have it here like /API, then the request would be rewritten by the proxy that we have set up to localhost 8080/API of login. So the same as here, but it would just replace like the local host, for example. This is specified like in our proxy.conf.json. And here we are just having like a fake login response at the moment. So if you're having like a real backend, then you can just, for example, use this here, something like this, and delete this here. So when we go through the code, we have here a login request. So this is the interface login request. This is coming from our interfaces, and this is just having the email and the password. And then as return, we get an observable with a login response. And this is having an access token, a refresh token, and a token type. And this could be, for example, also anything else, whatever you do in your backend. And here we are just returning an observable, so we make it off and fake the login response. So this is our mock. So we have here like mocked an access token, a refresh token, and a token type. So you would later like need to replace this. Then if this would be successful, we would set our local storage item, so the access token, and save it to the local storage. This is also included here. And then we would add the snack bar from Angular material that we just imported here, the snack bar service, and display login successful with a duration of 2 seconds on the top right position. So you can see it here when we say, look at the top right, when I hit login, then we display this here. So this would be like the login and the login service or function to the backend. And now we could go to the register. So this is like basically the same. We have our router link, we have our met card with the title, and then our met card with the content in our form, with the register form and the register function. And here we can look in the component. here we have our register form. This is just a few more properties, so email, username, first name, last name, password, and password confirm. So these here are like just they are under different named. This is like the same logic than in our login component. So you can see it here. We have the met form fields, we have the input type, and we have the errors if required or valid, and so on. So this goes also for the username here. This goes for the first name, for the last name, and then for the password we actually have something a little bit different, because normally if you register you should type your password 2 times to check that you're not having like a typo and then not can access your account. So for this we have like a password and a password confirm, and both are required. And then what we can do is we can add a custom validator. So normally you would add, for a simple form control here, you would add here like new validators, but you can also add to the whole form validator. And with this we want to check that password and the password confirm properties are the same, so that they are equal. For this I made like custom validators, and this lies here in the here top level of the public module. And this has a static passwords matching, and this takes an abstract control from Angular Forms. So this is coming from here, and with this abstract control we can access the values of this form. So here we can get our password control, so control.get password and the value, and also from the password confirm. So password and password confirm, we can get the values. So we have then the values in the password and password confirm. And then we can simply check if the password and password confirm are matching, and if they are also not null. And then we would not add like an error object or value here, password not matching true to the form. So then we would just return null. So then everything is okay. But if they are not matching, then we would add like an error, so a validation error here as return, and would say true. And then our component here, we can simply listen to here register form, get password confirm, dirty, and has error. So the whole form then, not just the password confirm, the whole form has error passwords not matching. Then we can display passwords are not matching, and then also the form is invalid. So when we go now, for example, here to our register form and say all the stuff, and now our passwords, so just so you see now not matching and I cannot register, but as soon as they are equal I can register, and then I have like user created successfully and so on. So this, the other stuff then is like the same than in the login component. So if we then hit register, we go against our authentication service, against register, the method, we use the register form.value, so all the values from here. And if then it's successful, so if we're getting something back, we are going to the login route, and we have to subscribe to make the observable hot. And let's have a look at the register. So here again we are faking the request to our backend with making observable of this mock of the object here, and this is just a fake register response where we say status 200 and message successful. You could, and then we just display like our snack bar user created successfully, and like before you could just remove this and add this real post request against your backend here, and and also maybe change some stuff. So this just takes a register request, for example, with email, username, first name, last name, and password, and it would return like an observable register response. At the moment it's just a status and a message, but you can like modify it whatever fits your needs, whatever fits your backend implementation. So this is like all the stuff from our public module. So the custom validator here, the interfaces, the module, routing module, and the normal module. And now we can go to our protected module, and this here is just having two routes, the dashboard, and if here something is matching, we redirect back to login. We have it for child, yes, and then we import the routing module into our protected module, and here we just import also the met button module because we are using it in our dashboard. And in the dashboard we have just a router link to go back to login, a link to go back to register, and a function to log out. And this is really just removing our token from our local storage and then is navigating us back. So this is nearly all the this is like all the project, the complete one. We can just quickly go again through all the stuff here. So we have our login that is being faked, or the response is being faked, so we're not making an actual call against the backend. So when we log in, then we display also like a message to the user so that he gets like a feedback from the application. We are saving the access token that we would then get from our backend to our local storage. We can go back to login to register. We can remove it. And if we remove it, we are not able to access the protected route anymore. Protected. And we are getting redirected back to login. And in register, we also have to make all the validators pass at all our user stuff here. And then the passwords have to match, otherwise we are not able to register. And so here the next steps are pretty small. So as always, probably some bug fixes or some enhancement of the UI, so some more Angular material stuff or some more styling. Maybe add a form for a password to reset the password. Maybe to add like a simple Nest.js backend for the requests. But actually, for me, this repository more aims just to display how to use Angular material for login and register page, and not really for the backend. But just let me know in the comments if you would prefer that I add here like a simple Nest.js server for the login and register route to have like a running backend.